And joining us from Bengaluru, we have with us a senior correspondent, Siddharth MP, who's joining us live on the broadcast. Hi Siddharth, a very good morning to you. Now, we are just 36 hours away from the landing. We're in the crucial stages. What can you tell us of the current stage and the status of the craft?
We are, stepping as we speak into a crucial phase. Today and tomorrow, ISRO will be conducting crucial review meetings. Each of these review meetings is meant to look at the health of the spacecraft and the progress of the mission. So, in fact, the most crucial phase will be 2 to 3 hours prior to the mission when ISRO takes that most important call, go or no go. Because landing on the moon and attempting soft landing is like jumping off a cliff. It's a point of no return. So it's not like an aircraft attempts landing and then later it chooses that if the conditions are not okay, it can always abort the landing and take off. But in lunar landing, there is no such luxury. You have one shot at it. It's like jumping off a cliff. You do it right, you get it right. If you don't do it right, it's over for you. So that's how critical this mission is. And based on multiple parameters that ISRO will analyze, ISRO will take a call around 3 hours prior to landing time tomorrow as to whether they want to go or not. And as the scientist Nilesh Desai had mentioned, we have to keep in mind that ISRO keeps always multiple backup plans. So one is that it will land at 6:04 p.m. on Wednesday, and the second plan will be for 27th August. So basically what the craft will do, it will analyze all its parameters internally and also the landing parameters and conditions on the moon. Once all of this analysis is carried out, then ISRO will finally take the decision of go or no go. If there is any malfunction, if there is any issue, which ISRO has clearly said until now there's nothing, so they're completely geared up for landing tomorrow. But if in case last minute something crops up, the next best shot at landing will be 27th August. And on 27th August, what ISRO will try to do is they will move to a slightly different landing site, a slightly safer zone, and land over there. So since the moon is also revolving and since the orbiter is circling the moon, it's not possible to land at the exact same site during the second attempt. So there is a similar backup site that has been arranged, and ISRO will attempt landing on the backup site on the second instance.
Absolutely, Siddharth. In fact, I was just going to ask you about the contingency plans in place in case there is any delay. That being said, for a smooth landing, of course, managing fuel reserves, that of course would be very important. Tell us more about this, especially if there is an expected delay.
So managing fuel reserves, as you rightly pointed out, is a very key priority for any space agency undertaking any deep space mission to moon or Mars or whatever, because what you're carrying is a very finite amount of fuel and you factor in n number of contingencies, but it's only to a certain degree that you can factor in contingencies, and if it goes beyond that tolerant limit, you run out of fuel. So even the Apollo 11 landing, when Neil Armstrong was to land the Eagle lander on the moon, what we have to remember is the automatic system on the lander took them towards the boulders, but Neil Armstrong used his piloting skills and he actually steered it away to safety, and then he landed on a proper zone that is free of craters. So at that time, when he was crucially maneuvering the craft, he realized they were running out of fuel. So these are some of the scenarios that could happen, but of course now things have changed drastically and ISRO has adequate fuel on their craft. Managing fuel reserves, as you said, is a priority, but then fuel to orbit is nothing. Actually, to circle the moon, it is zero fuel, but it is only to make maneuvers that engines have to be fired, and that's where fuel is used up. So as long as the spacecraft is circling the moon, there is no essentially fuel required. It can circle as it is using its orbital velocity. But then if the craft has to move up or down, if the craft has to attempt landing, that's when the engines have to be fired or retro-fired or fired in a reverse direction. That's when fuel is used up. So that's the point at which, fuel management is most essential. And the reason why fuel is required is because in the moon, the atmosphere is very thin. So there will be insignificant amounts of slowing down the craft because of atmospheric drag. So if a rocket or a space shuttle is re-entering, the atmosphere of the Earth slows it down naturally, and thereafter you can use parachutes. You have the luxury of air on Earth. So you can use parachutes and they'll slow you down to land on the oceans. On the moon, you have none of that. You're landing on a hard surface, you're landing on terrain. So the only priority there is to manage your fuel reserves and come and land safely, just like a helicopter would. You're initially traveling horizontally, then you're traveling vertically, and then coming and landing vertically.
Absolutely, Siddharth. With just less than 36 hours left for landing, all eyes are on Chandrayaan-3. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights with us on this. We'll, of course, be tracking this very closely here.